It's funny about passing. We disapprove of it and at the same time condone it. It excites our contempt, and yet we rather admire it. We shy away from it with an odd kind of revulsion, but we protect it. Assimilation disgusts me, yet assimilation attracts to me. But things wouldn't change with or without assimilation. Ba and Thuy will always be Vietnamese immigrants, not American citizens. Irene and Claire's dream of passing will still be broken. Danny and Ella will still be separated from Chado and Naya. The initial signs of passing, however, are always hidden in the food we eat, the name we're called, and the language we speak. The word umami originated from Japanese word umami, meaning pleasant, savory taste. The fact that the Japanese word in Chinese characters belongs to one of 5 basic tastes tell you how much Asians love food. When Beijing people greet each other, instead of "How are you?" they say, "Have you eaten?" That's because the answer always says more than simply what they ate, but their lifestyle, their culture, and their wealth. Food was the first thing assimilated once they entered the US because it served American stomachs. Thuy's father, Ba, wanted to tell the Americans who ate there that in many ways, a bowl of pho was not much different from a bowl of chicken in the soup. Pho tasted better, but nothing to wear in paying $20. That's why no Vietnamese people ate at this restaurant. Well, the orange chicken and pad thai at China Gourmet are delicious indeed, but they're not Chinese. We make fun of American Chinese food, saying how popular it is as traditional Cantonese food. Yet we condone it, and we encourage it by ordering it every weekend. It is us who allow America to assimilate our food, then our tastes, then our identities. Claire and Irene walk into Drayton, forgetting who they are. 2 African-American women met at a white exclusive restaurant, not being recognized by anyone white but each other. The mainstream culture is ignorant, so more conservatives like Irene choose to pass. The more she passes, the more Irene suffers, not from exposure, but from the fear of being exposed. She panics when Claire stares. Could that woman somehow know that here before her very eyes, on the roof of Drayton, sat a... She denies when Claire questions. Tell me honestly, haven't you ever thought of passing? No! Why should I? Her voice was disdainful, Nella Larson wrote. But is she disdainful of Claire's passing or of herself? Because their encounter at Drayton already debunks her lie. Naming reflects the features of a certain type of assimilation. My first English teacher named me Katie when I was 5 so that I could be remembered by English speakers. Unfortunately, many people misspell my name even after knowing me for years. But what if the me they remember is not me at all? When I recall my past as Katie, I would say Katie is an international student at NMH who's outgoing and likes theater production and canoeing. But Wang Ziqi, that's my Chinese name, was an ordinary student from Fuzhou, China, who was popular in her middle school for nothing but her grades. There are 2 very different people indeed, and if you call me right now in my Chinese name, I'll be too embarrassed to respond. Katie was not a direct translation of Ziqi, but the extent of relatedness is not the problem. Translation itself is the problem. Ba's English name was a direct translation from his Vietnamese name, Min, but he still couldn't recognize it. He used to walk around the house and mutter the spelling of his name in English. M-I, M-I-N, M-I-N-H. Even when he was able to spell his whole name, he couldn't quite trust that this was he himself. Were these the letters? Was this his name? Assimilation in slavery is like role play. White supremacy prevails the system. Whites were powerful, enslaved-born animals. There were no other ways to go. Mr. Garner named Paul A to Paul F, who he claimed are raised as a sweet home man. But could you be a man if you don't know your name? Toni Morrison certainly plays a trick here by giving their original names back to the remaining sweet home men, Sixo and Hallie. They are men, but their opposition to assimilation resulted in tragedies. The luckier ones, such as Frederick Douglass, were however less fortunate. an imprisoned heart goes with a free body. I am my own master, he said on one hand, but he gave the right to name himself to Mr. Johnson, who, despite not a slave owner, had accepted and exercised the power of such. It's easy to resist injustice, to escape from the schoolteacher, to fight Thomas Old back. But assimilation has perfect disguise. Me, Ba, Paul D would take our new names for granted for days, months, years, until they become who we are, and they erase who we were. Language manifests the power of colonization. Imagine learning a new foreign language in your 40s as if learning English at the age of 5. You listen to English language tapes and repeat aloud the sentences and phrases as you moved around the kitchen. But all the extra effort do not improve your stop when you see a stop sign. Ba's language learning experience resonates with Chinatown residents, many of whom smuggled from my very hometown. Yes, the only thing it is known for is its history of smuggling. It is said that if you can only speak Fuzhou dialect, you do better in Chinatown than most English speakers. But should we be frustrated by Ba and Chinese immigrants' failure to master English, or should we celebrate it, as they have unintentionally fought against assimilation? Being fluent in English doesn't make you powerful, though, but make you pessimistic because you now know how native English speakers have gradually colonized your people. I interviewed this Uyghur vendor in a Kashgar market who spoke Mandarin as fluently as us, but sold the same souvenirs as a 90-year-old Uyghur lady next to him who couldn't speak Mandarin at all. Knowing Mandarin doesn't bring him a better job, but more knowledge from tourists like us about what life in Shanghai and Beijing looks like. Who is happier, the young vendor or the old? Who is happier, the frog in the well who imagines the tiny circle of blue sky to be its whole world, or the frog outside who sees a whole world but is more likely to be crushed? No wonder Aya says, it was like the old ones always told her about learning their language or any of their ways. It endangers you. Shadow speaks English and Spanish as well as an American. But who is more painful, Shadow or Aya? Who is more painful, the one who knows why Danny and Ella and many other Native American children are taken away, or the one who only knows to sign her name and told to do so? The last time Danny reunited with Aya, Danny tried to answer her, but he could not seem to remember, and he spoke English words with a Navajo. Tan skins, long hair, dark eyes. What do these physical characteristics mean to Danny when he couldn't speak the language that has paired up with such appearance for thousands of years? These kids I met in Kashgar are losing their language too, because almost every school there prohibits teaching Uyghur. What are they then? Uyghur? Han? The question is, how can you call a colonized culture a culture? Society everywhere is in conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. Emerson wrote in Self-Reliance. He asks us to trust thyself and be nonconformist, but we nonetheless conform if we all agree with Emerson. The paradox is not a paradox, though. Trust thyself, they said, because it called for diversity out of unity. Trust thyself, I said, because we never need to pass.